Yeah?
Yeah. My number 2 is State of Decay. Do you know State of Decay?
I've got it, I haven't played it yet.
Okay. So State of Decay came out yesterday from the day of recording, and I was asked to review it for video game. I'm in the process of doing that right now. This was the game that I played. This is basically the game that I played in this ilk straight after The Last of Us, which I'll obviously talk about in a minute. And it doesn't start particularly favourably. You start as a bloke called Marcus. It just drops you in to the point where I thought that the game is almost broken because it drops you in. The frame rate is fucking like unbelievably shit. The voices start talking before the graphics load, and I thought the game had bugged out or something. Anyway, you're hitting zombies. It's fairly basic. The graphics are terrible. The frame rate is terrible, and I was thinking, oh god, this is not for me. But I'd heard a couple of reviews had come out already, and that it was good, and so obviously I had to stick with it. And it starts to open up a little bit, and then you move with the guy that you're with into a building, and you can see that I can barricade windows and all this stuff. But still, at this point, I was like, I don't think this is going to be very good. This is going to be a bit of an arduous task. Fast forward, how long have I played it? Probably 5 hours. And I put it out on Twitter. I think this game, in many ways, is a masterpiece. It's the game. What I actually wrote on Twitter is that State of Decay will be some people's favourite game ever. This is a game that people have been asking for years. It just happens to be a fucking janky-ass, sketchy version of that game. But damn, it's so ambitious. If most zombie games, are either like scripted, linear experiences, or even open world ones are kind of more directed. Something like, what's it called? The fucking Capcom one. What's it called?
What,
the Capcom one in the mall. I've forgotten what it's called.
Dead Rising?
Yeah, Dead Rising. This, however, is a completely systemic zombie survival game where you have a character and he can be leveled up in RPG style. You meet other people, you find other survivors in emergent situations across this big open world. Then that you can bring them back to a homestead that you make, and you can make different ones and move them and things. And then you can start to build relationships with these people by like going out saving them in situations, going out on missions with them. When you build up their trust to the point where you're a friend with them, you can actually switch to be that character. So you can start to switch between lots of different characters and go out on missions and level that character up and whatnot. If one of those characters goes down in a fight with zombies, that's it, they're done. Permadeath. So you can be in a situation where, you've had a guy that you've leveled up for 4 hours, something goes wrong, a zombie bursts through the window when you're, in a situation in the house, you've just gone out to get some supplies, it's all gone wrong, someone's made some noise, zombie comes through a window, he's dead, that's it, that guy's gone. So it has all this like emergent storytelling within its sketchy but really compelling framework. And then the more I started to understand, because it's completely overwhelming at first, it's like it keeps giving you all this information, and it's a very complicated game, and I was just like, I can't fucking understand any of this shit. But you don't have to know everything that's going on in a game. You can kind of follow the thread of the tutorial and then the first few story missions, because there's a story as well, and then the rest of the stuff starts to make sense. And I'm at the point where I'm starting to build a new medical area in my homestead, a new tools, like workbench type area, so the people there can start making their own supplies, so I don't have to go on so many supply runs, and you start to build this community, and it's just a really fucking amazing game in terms of its ambition. And it's also got good atmosphere, really good music, and the more you play it, the more you forgive the technical shittery, and it's pretty bad. But it just seemed to just stop noticing it after a while, just because I was kind of really captivated by what was happening.
I'm still absolutely none the wiser about what it is. For some reason, I thought it was like several people online co-op or something.
No, it's just single player, open world zombie survival game with focusing on melee combat. It's basically the Walking Dead simulator. If you chucked a couple more million, polish this shit up, put the Walking Dead license on it, you could actually call it the Walking Dead Survival Instinct, and pretend that game didn't exist, not that I've ever played it, and it would be a brilliant Walking Dead simulator. That you wouldn't even have to, the Walking Dead Telltale game is its own thing, which is brilliant. This would be like the simulator action game version that, while there is a story, all the action, like in the great emergent games, is happening purely through the game systems, which layer on top of each other and on top of each other. And apparently later on, if your morale drops in your camp, then people start falling out, and they could and then someone might get bitten. You don't know, classic zombie stuff, but it's not happening scripted. It's emergent stuff. Like, your friend can turn and attack another friend that you don't know. It's really fucking good, really good.
Shit.
It's sketchy as fuck and confusing as hell for the first 2 hours. And I tell you what, if I wasn't reviewing it, I would have given up. There's no two ways. I would have definitely given up. If say I'd done the trial, which I believe is a generous trial at the beginning, I'd have gone, I don't understand this, and the frame rate shit, I'm not going to play this is rubbish. But I'm very, very glad that I did stick with it. And it doesn't hold your hand. It could do a lot better job of explaining what the hell's going on, a lot better, but I'm starting to wrap my head around it now.
Okay, I don't know what gave me the impression this was some kind of... I think it's probably because it was mentioned in the same sentence as DayZ.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I haven't played DayZ, but DayZ, as far as I'm aware, not only is it online, but the focus and the real danger in DayZ is the humans, as far as I'm aware, the other players. Whereas the only enemy in this game is the zombies. You don't have human enemies, and it's obviously not online. So I think gameplay-wise, it's a very different experience, but I think also in terms of its hardcore credentials, that's probably why they're quite similar, and it's an easy comparison. But it's actually, as far as I'm aware, I haven't played DayZ. It's pretty false. I've been thinking a lot about themes and gameplay this week. It's been interesting because I watched Nintendo Direct today, and we watched obviously the conferences and everything else, and every setup for one of these big AAA games was, especially the Ubisoft one being the main one, a guy talking about the themes and the concepts and the ideas, nothing to do with gameplay. These are all story stuff, whereas Nintendo's one was just literally the minutiae of what you're going to be doing within this game, what's in the menus in like 3D Land, how to access this, what this power-up does. It's a completely different philosophy, and it doesn't. No one raised right, no one raised anything like this. But you could talk about State of Decay's themes all day if you wanted to, but what makes it interesting is its gameplay. And I talked about that I thought it might be a masterpiece last week. Ended up dropping a 9 on it for Video Gamer. It's just a brilliant fucking video game. Yeah. It's sketchy as all hell. The word the Americans use is janky. It seems to be an appropriate word because it stutters, it sputters, it fucking freezes. The frame rate shit. It looks like ass, but it is a Walking Dead simulation, and it just keeps on giving. The more you play, the deeper it gets. The interpersonal relationships between characters start happening. As the morale drops in your camp, more emergent stuff starts happening. As you start losing crew members, the permanent death. It is the game that so many people have wanted their whole lives, and now it exists. And it just happens to be a 12 quid or whatever it costs, 15 quid downloadable game that doesn't have the budget or the production values of something like Dead Rising 3 that's coming out. But I'll state my claim now. This would be a better game than Dead Rising 3 will be. As good as that looked, aesthetically from the Microsoft conference yesterday, it won't be as good a video game or as complete or as ambitious a video game as State of Decay is right now.
Yeah, I'm loving the digital delivery. I'm loving the fact that again, as I said, I'm sticking away from. I've just lost interest in previews and trailers and all that stuff. Sure. It interests me less and less. The fact that this just arrived, for me, completely with no fanfare at all. Had you heard about this when it was in development?
I knew it existed. I think I'd read a very brief preview on Eurogamer a little while ago, but I didn't realise it was suddenly coming out so soon. So that surprised me, and I also thought it was a slightly different game to what it actually was.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know what it was, and when I sat down, I was like, "This is really good. This is really good. Oh, this is really good." And then I remember the first time I got in a car and realised it was actually a sandbox. I was like, "Whoa! Why hasn't somebody done this before?" I read a brilliant review, and I'm really sorry, I've forgotten where I read it. I think it might have been Joystick, Really, really, really bang on review, but they said something along the lines of it's actually the most mundane things that you're doing, because you're managing all of the people and you're making sure that everyone's all right, and you're sort of making sure that all of you're doing mundane things, but in the heat of all that stuff, the most mental things happen. What's one of the things, the best things that's happened? Again, it's in the similar way to Last of Us. I think probably things that have happened to you have not happened to me, and vice versa.
Yeah,
and I've
absolutely.
I do like they have taken something of the Demon's Dark Souls sort of zombie you. You could be, because the Dead Rising style combat is very, very satisfying, and you do feel like you're completely in control of it. The gunplay is a little bit more problematic, but at the same time, you can be finished off. I mean, I went driving up. The great thing about it is you see things. I saw a petrol station on a hill, and I was like, "Oh, there's bound to be some shit up there." And I just drove up there, got out, and I got fucking set upon by about God knows how many zombies, and I lost my boy. He died. Have you lost anyone yet?
Yeah.
That was just like shit house. There are. I mean, there's so much wrong with it. I mean, presentation wise, it is, as you said, ludicrous. I mean, have they made any? Have they said they're going to patch it or do anything to fix it? Because it is unbelievably sketchy.
There's talk of a patch to fix a bug. I hope they do a refinement patch. I know it's done very, very well, so hopefully they've got the budget to do that. It's already, I think it's pushing 500,000 already, which is amazing for. It's the second fastest selling game ever on Xbox Live. Yeah. So that's good. But it is sketchy as all hell. There's no doubt about that, and it doesn't do a very good job. In fact, it does an appalling job of explaining itself. So in some ways that's good, because it's nice not to have your hand held too much, and it's really cool when you discover stuff yourself. But at the same time, if I said this in my review, if I didn't have to continue because I was contractually obliged to play, I would have ditched it after 25 minutes, because I don't know what's happening. It's too much information. I don't care, and it looks like shit. Yeah. But do stick with it.
I'm good. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I just mean generally.
Yeah, peeps. It's really impressive. I hate to sound like. I mean, there is something very, very bizarre about going between this and. I went between this and Last of Us. I don't recommend doing that by any stretch, because the controls are vaguely similar and you just end up fucking up. In terms of, because it's so, there are as sketchy as it is in terms of the way it looks and the way it plays sometimes, the systems within the camps and within the people and all of the looting and almost everything else seems pretty much rock solid. And at the end of the day, all of that stuff is so much more important. I mean, I know it sounds stupid to even point it out, but I suppose if you haven't seen it, I'm trying to imagine if someone hasn't seen the game, just how bad it really. I mean, the frame rate, especially when you're driving, sometimes is absolutely comical. It's
poor. But after I just stopped noticing it. After, I mean, I've played the game for about probably 15 hours now, and I barely even notice the sketchy stuff anymore. It just doesn't seem to register. I'm too busy thinking. I think trying to either survive, because it gets way harder after. Probably 6 or 7 hours, and all the different zombie types are out there. Even just a basic little recce to the local few houses, just to see what they've got, see what gubbins they've got, can be, turn into a nightmare where you're calling in reinforcements and having a huge fucking epic war. But it's so involving. It's so completely involving.
Yeah, it is. Brilliant things have happened. I've accidentally set off a load of firecrackers when we're trying to stealth it up to go and get this stuff. I mean, just fucking comedy. It is. I mean, you were so right about it being basically Walking Dead the game. Even the way the where it's set, obviously, but that kind of sort of the autumnal brown shades of everything, and it's. It is very reminiscent of The Walking Dead.
It even has that kind of 3-chord piano somber thing that comes in, which is a really nice. That's sort of that lost music as well. All the music's really good. Some of it's some of it's tranquil, some of it's kind of melancholy, some of it's kind of frantic as well. Also, slight rewind. The music in The Last of Us is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true.
But come back to State of Decay. Everything apart from the graphics and the frame rate are actually really, really good. But it's like they had £20, and instead of spending £5 on makeup, they just spent £20 on a good meal. Oh my god, that's the weirdest thing I've ever said.
It is. I mean, I can't. There's nothing that it reminds me of. I can't remember a game that looked this bent out of shape, but just played so brilliantly.
Yeah, it's almost like the Fallout in that way, that you just forgive all of the bugs and the sketchy shit. Not that there's really that many bugs in this, but I mean, Fallout looked a lot better than this. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it did. The only, I mean, in terms, I mean, I think in terms of the systems and how much there is going on, it actually feels pretty much perfect. But the only, well, first of all, I think the only way it could be made better is if it was multiplayer, because, but especially when your character's knackered, because your stamina depletes the whole time you keep playing. So you're going to go home and swap out. If you go home at night, there was this one time I went home at night and there was everyone else had pissed off, so I couldn't swap with anyone, so I'd just keep pissing around with this knackered bloke, and I just thought I assumed they were all out sort of missioning it up and doing stuff, and it was that the fact that wasn't other people was kind of disappointing. I would have liked it so much more, even if it was in kind of like a Zombie Dark Souls kind of way where they're not there, you know. It's just whether they're leaving notes or they say I'm going to go do this and they're playing at a different time from you, something like that. But this is a dry run for another game that I was reading. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to release a full-blown game, I think, on the current gen. So it will probably appear on Xbox 360.
I'd imagine it'll probably end up being on the next one, but yeah, this is the dry run for an MMO.
Okay, well, I can't say that I really want to play that game. It's really, I feel like I've done a terrible job of explaining what's good about it, because it is a kind of Frankenstein-like patchwork of stuff that you've seen a million times before. Not necessarily all together, but I love the first thing I should probably point out, because I had no idea and it didn't really sink in until a little while. It is a sandbox, and I don't think people have made that particularly clear. It is like Grand Theft Auto Zombieland, and with all these brilliant systems whereby you're managing the people and you're trying to make sure that everyone's happy. And I've heard also that if you sort of neglect your sort of makeshift family, they can start killing themselves and reacting amongst each other and things like that. But like that joystick review said, most of what you're doing, it's not mundane to do. It's the kind of stuff that would take a back seat in like a zombie movie, because it's just getting the food, getting the supplies, making sure everyone's all right, doing recce's and stuff. It's one of the biggest surprises of God knows. I mean, I can't remember the last time a game's taken me by surprise this much. Just came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, like I said, I knew what it was, but I wasn't expecting it to be so complete and so so good. Just it's kind of an unusual compliment to The Last of Us as well, which is a very almost old-fashioned style of game, very this generation style of game, if anything, and an amazing game, and probably the pinnacle of that style. But in many ways, State of Decay is actually more ambitious. It's not a better game. The Last of Us is a better game, but State of Decay, I've said this in my reviews, actually, how open, will be some people's favourite game ever. I'm sure it will be. People who love zombies and have wanted this will be their favourite game ever.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a hell of a game. I mean, if you're planning on playing Last of Us as well, I'd make sure you keep them well away from each other and do one first and then the other. But it's really, really, I mean, amazingly impressive, really.
Experiences or even open world ones are kind of more directed. Something like what's it called? Fucking Capcom one. What's it called?
What,
the Capcom one in the mall. I've forgotten what it's called.
Dead Rising.
Yeah, Dead Rising. This, however, is a completely systemic zombie survival game where you have a character and he can be leveled up in RPG style. You meet other. This is not for me, but I'd heard a couple of reviews had come out already and that it was good, and so obviously I had to stick with it. And it starts to open up a little bit, and then you move with the guy that you're with into a building, and you can see that I can barricade windows and all this stuff. But still, at this point, I was like, I don't think this is going to be very good. This is going to be a bit of an arduous task. Fast forward, how long have I played it? Probably 5 hours. And it doesn't start particularly favourably. You start as a bloke called Marcus. It just drops you in to the point where I thought that the game is almost broken because it drops you in. The frame rate is fucking like unbelievably shit. The voices start talking before the graphics load, and I thought the game had bugged out or something. Anyway, you're hitting zombies. It's fairly basic. The graphics are terrible. The frame rate is terrible, and I was thinking, oh god, this is not.
Yeah.
My number 2 is State of Decay. Do you know State of Decay?
I've got it. I haven't played it yet.
Okay. So State of Decay came out yesterday from the day of recording, and I was asked to review it for video game. I'm in the process of doing that right now. This was the game that I played. This is basically the game that I played in this ilk straight after The Last of Us, which I'll obviously talk about in a minute. And I put it out on Twitter. I think this game, in many ways, is a masterpiece. It's the game. What I actually wrote on Twitter is that State of Decay will be some people's favourite game ever. This is a game that people have been asking for years. It just happens to be a fucking janky-ass, sketchy version of that game. But damn, it's so ambitious. If most zombie games, are either like scripted, linear,